In June of 1994, a 17-year-old girl named Lena Mae Colbert walked into the old-growth Douglas fir forest along the Klamath River in Northern California and never came back. Her father, Raymond Colbert, a logging foreman from the town of Happy Camp in Siskiyou County, reported her missing on the evening of June 19th. She had last been seen on a dirt road near the Elk Creek trailhead, roughly 4 miles from the family's seasonal cabin. Her hiking boots were recovered 2 days later beside a granite creek bed. One of them had been torn at the ankle, not cut, not worn through, torn from the outside in, like something had gripped the leather and pulled. The Siskiyou County Sheriff's Department organized a search that lasted 11 days. They found no body, no blood, and no physical evidence of foul play. The case was classified as a missing persons cold file in August of that same year. Raymond Colbert never accepted that classification. He kept searching on his own for the next 17 years. What he eventually found in the summer of 2011 is the reason this story has never fully gone away. But to understand what Raymond found, you need to understand what was already moving through that forest long before his daughter disappeared. Because the Klamath River corridor, stretching from the Oregon border south through Humboldt and Siskiyou counties, is one of the most densely documented Bigfoot territories in North America. The Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization database, which archives sighting reports submitted by the public and verified by field investigators, lists over 340 Class A and Class B encounters in that corridor. Class A means direct visual contact. Class B means auditory or physical evidence without confirmed visual contact. 3 months before Lena Colbert vanished, 2 elk hunters from Eureka, named Dale Pruitt and his brother Curtis, were camping near the upper fork of the Salmon River, when they reported hearing a series of vocalizations that neither of them could explain after 30 combined years of hunting this region. Dale described the sounds to researchers from the North American Bigfoot Research Collective in a recorded interview conducted in 2003. He said it started as a low resonant sound, something like a man clearing his throat in a large empty room, and then it built into what he called a structured howl. It was not random. It repeated in a clear pattern. 3 long tones, a pause, then 2 short ones. Silence for about 40 seconds. Then the exact same sequence again. Curtis said he had his rifle up before he was even aware he had moved. They broke camp at 3 in the morning and drove straight back to Eureka. Curtis returned to that section of the Salmon River once in the fall of 1994 and found a line of impressions in a mudflat near the water's edge. He photographed them with a disposable film camera. Those photographs, grainy and slightly overexposed from the heavy forest canopy, show what appear to be 3 sequential bipedal tracks moving in a straight line parallel to the river. The stride length between impressions measures approximately 58 inches. A large adult male averages around 30 inches per stride. Curtis submitted copies of those photographs to the BFRO in the fall of 1994. They were logged as Report Number 7741, Siskiyou County, California, Class B. The database entry notes, the impressions were found at roughly 800 feet elevation, and that soil compression suggested a weight estimate between 600 and 800 pounds. Based on depth analysis conducted by BFRO field investigator Gary Huffman, who visited the site 7 weeks after the initial report. Raymond Colbert knew nothing about any of this when his daughter disappeared. He was a practical man who had spent 3 decades in commercial logging operations. He thought about drifters. He thought about cliff edges. He thought about cold water. He did not think about Bigfoot. He hired a private investigator in 1997. The investigation produced nothing. He posted missing persons flyers along Highway 96 every spring from 1995 through 2004. He appeared on a regional radio program out of Medford, Oregon in 2001 and described Lena's appearance to listeners. He received 11 calls. None of them led anywhere. What kept him searching, he later told a documentary film crew in 2013, was a single piece of evidence he had kept entirely to himself for nearly 2 decades. The morning after Lena disappeared, before the sheriff's department arrived, Raymond walked the trail to Elk Creek alone. He found her boots. He also found something else, roughly 30 feet from where those boots were sitting on the creek bank, pressed into the soft clay at the water's edge. 2 footprints, not a human's, not a bear's. Each impression measured 14 inches in length and 8 inches across at the widest point. 5 distinct toe marks, widespread, like a human foot enlarged to an impossible scale. The depth of the impressions in that moist creek soil suggested a weight that Raymond, with 3 decades of experience reading what heavy logging equipment does to soft ground, estimated at well over 500 pounds. He photographed both impressions with the disposable camera he kept in the glove compartment of his work truck. He chose not to tell the investigators because he was afraid. Not afraid of what made the tracks. Afraid they would stop looking for his daughter and start looking for something else entirely. He kept that photograph sealed inside a manila envelope in that same glove compartment for 17 years. By 2008, Raymond had begun driving the forest roads at night. He does not fully explain why he started doing this. He says it was not something he decided. It was something that started happening, the way prolonged grief sometimes makes a person do things that do not have rational explanations. He would drive the old logging roads east of Orleans and the gravel pullouts along the Bluff Creek corridor, windows down, engine off, listening to the forest. In the spring of 2009, something listened back. He was parked near a gated secondary road about 12 miles east of Orleans when he heard it from the ridge above him. 3 long tones, a pause, 2 short ones. The exact same structural pattern Dale Pruitt had described to researchers 6 years earlier, 200 miles away, in a recorded interview that Raymond had never heard. Raymond had never read BFRO Report 7741. He had no framework for what he was hearing. He only knew it did not match anything he had encountered in 30 years of working in these forests. He stepped out of the truck and made the same sounds back. 3 long, 2 short. The ridge went completely silent. Then something moved in the tree line above him. Not a rustling of branches, a weight displacement. The sound of something large shifting its position in the dark above the rocky slope. Raymond Colbert got back in his truck, sat without moving for nearly 2 hours with the engine off and his hands flat on his thighs and his eyes on the darkness between the fir trees. He came back the following week and the week after that. Over the next 18 months, he documented 47 separate vocalization events across a 17-mile stretch of that ridge system, logging each one by date, time, GPS coordinates, weather conditions, and the nature of the call. That log was later reviewed by acoustic researchers at the Cascade Cryptid Research Institute in Ashland, Oregon, who noted the call patterns showed a level of structural repetition inconsistent with any documented North American wildlife species. In the fall of 2010, Raymond began leaving fruit at the trailheads nearest the most frequent vocalization sites. Apples and pears from a roadside stand near Sayad Valley. They started disappearing overnight. By February of 2011, Raymond had mounted 2 trail cameras on Douglas fir trees along the ridge. Raymond checked them every 10 days, driving up the logging road before dawn and back before full light. On March 14, 2011, the camera mounted at approximately 1,400 feet elevation captured a sequence of 19 images over the span of roughly 1 minute. The first 16 frames show the empty trail and the mixed fir and oak underbrush behind it. Frame 17 shows a bipedal figure entering the left edge, fully upright, moving on two legs with a wide, even stride. A second smaller figure is visible directly behind it. In frame 19, both are gone. Raymond drove to the camera site at first light the following morning. On the soft ground directly below the fir tree, he found 4 impressions in the earth. 2 large, 2 small. The larger impressions each measured 13 inches in length. The smaller ones measured approximately 7 inches. He sat on the ground beside those tracks for a long time. Then he drove to the Siskiyou County Sheriff's Department and asked to speak with the detective assigned to his daughter's cold case file. The detective was Sergeant Alan Voss, a 22-year veteran who had worked Lena Colbert's disappearance from the first day. Raymond showed him the trail camera photographs. He showed him the vocalization log with 47 entries spanning 18 months. And for the first time in 17 years, he opened the manila envelope from his glove compartment and placed the 1994 photograph on the desk between them. Sergeant Voss later described that meeting in a recorded statement provided to independent documentary researchers in 2014. He said he did not know what to make of the camera images. He said the footprint photograph from 1994 was unlike anything he had seen in his career, and he said, Raymond Colbert was the calmest person he had ever seen walk through that department's front door carrying evidence like that. What happened next took 3 months to arrange. In June of 2011, 17 years after Lena May Colbert disappeared, Raymond led a joint party into the ridge system east of Orleans. The group included Sergeant Voss, 2 Siskiyou County Sheriff's deputies, and 3 field researchers from the Cascade Cryptid Research Institute. They carried trail cameras, directional audio recording equipment, thermal imaging units, plaster casting materials, and a portable spectrographic analyzer for vocalization documentation in the field. They established base camp at 2,200 feet elevation in a natural clearing Raymond had identified as the convergence point of the call patterns. The first night was quiet until approximately 11 in the evening, when the directional microphones on the east-facing tree line picked up the first response. 3 long tones. A pause. 2 short ones. Lead researcher Dr. Petra Cahill logged the event at 11:14 p.m. Over the following 4 hours, 3 additional vocalization sequences were documented from different positions along the ridge, suggesting a subject or multiple subjects moving laterally above the camp. Dr. Cahill later described the recordings as the most structurally consistent cryptid vocalizations she had reviewed in 14 years of fieldwork. The thermal imaging unit recorded continuous footage throughout both nights. On night 2 at approximately 2:40 a.m., the North Perimeter camera captured movement at a range of roughly 60 meters. The footage, later reviewed by independent thermal imaging specialists contracted by the Institute, shows 2 heat signatures moving along the upper tree line. The larger moves bipedally with a stride profile analysts described as consistent with a very tall and heavy-set bipedal organism. The smaller moves directly behind it, partially obscured. Both remain in the canopy zone for approximately 4 minutes before disappearing north along the ridge. No wildlife native to the Siskiyou Mountains produces a thermal profile of those dimensions in a fully bipedal configuration. On the morning of the 3rd day, field researcher Marcus Webb was checking the perimeter trail cameras east of camp when he stopped walking. There was a person standing in the trail approximately 40 meters ahead of him. She was completely still, watching him. She was barefoot on the rocky forest floor. She wore clothing that Marcus later described as assembled rather than manufactured, layered natural materials that appeared to be bark fiber and cured animal hide fitted together in a way that suggested long and practiced construction rather than anything industrially made. Her hair was long and dark, tangled with small debris from the forest floor. She appeared to be a woman in her mid-30s. She did not appear injured. She did not appear afraid. Marcus Webb stood in that trail for what he estimated was 30 seconds without moving or speaking. Then the woman took a single step back into the shadow of the fir trees, and she was gone. He radioed the base camp. Raymond covered that trail at a pace the research team struggled to match. He did not call out. He followed the trail to where Marcus had been standing. Then he walked directly off the trail into the trees without stopping and kept walking through the underbrush and the rocky ground below the ridge face. He found her in a hollow below a granite outcrop, sitting with her back against the stone. 3 children were with her. The oldest appeared to be approximately 14 years old. The middle child appeared to be around 10. The youngest was no older than 6 or 7. All 3 were barefoot. All 3 were watching Raymond with the same stillness the woman had shown in the trail. Lena May Colbert was 34 years old. She had been missing for exactly 17 years and 6 days. The Institute researchers remained at the perimeter of that hollow at Raymond's request. Sergeant Voss and his deputies held position at the trailhead 200 meters below. What Raymond said to his daughter in that hollow, and what she said back to him, was not recorded and has never been publicly released. Raymond has declined to discuss the content of that conversation in any interview or statement since 2011. What the research team was permitted to document in the hours and days that followed is where this story becomes something that standard missing persons frameworks are not built to contain. Dr. Cahill's field notes from the hollow, entered into the Institute's case archive as file KR-2011-06, described the physical condition of all 4 individuals as consistent with extended outdoor survival. No signs of malnutrition, no untreated injuries, no evidence of captivity or coercion. Lena declined a medical examination at the scene. She allowed the researchers to take basic observational notes from a respectful distance. The 3 children were examined more closely only after a period of several days, during which Lena and the children camped voluntarily near the research base while Raymond remained present. What the researchers observed during those days forms the most contested section of the Institute's report, and the section that has drawn the most sustained attention from the cryptid research community in the years since. The children's physical proportions fell outside normal human developmental ranges across multiple measurements. The oldest, a male, stood 4 feet 11 inches at an estimated age of 14. What the researchers noted was the width of his shoulders relative to his height, the apparent bone density in his hands and forearms, and his foot size. His foot measured 11.5 inches. An average 14-year-old male foot measures between 8 and 9. The middle child showed similar proportional characteristics. The youngest was a girl whose measurements were within normal human ranges with the exception of her hands, which were significantly large for her frame. Plaster casts were made of footprints throughout the hollow and along the approach trail. The 2 adult-sized impressions near the granite face measured 13 inches and 13.5 inches, matching the dimensions Raymond documented at the trail camera site in March. The children's casts were compared against the Institute's database of juvenile track casts collected across the Pacific Northwest since 1997. The oldest child's cast was the closest match ever recorded in that database to juvenile Bigfoot impressions, documented in Skagit County, Washington in 2004. None of this constitutes proof of anything. Dr. Cahill is the first to say so. The Institute's official report, released in limited distribution to affiliated research organizations in 2012, concludes only that the physical evidence is anomalous and warrants further investigation. It draws no conclusions about paternity or biological origin. It presents measurements, cast dimensions, thermal footage analysis, and vocalization recordings, and asks the scientific community to engage with those materials seriously. Very few members of that community have been willing to do so publicly. The BFRO cross-referenced the KR-2011-06 findings against their global encounter database and identified 3 prior cases with comparable characteristics. A 1979 report from coastal British Columbia, where a woman missing for 2 years was found in a remote coastal inlet and declined to return. A 1988 report from the Tatra Mountains in southern Poland, where a missing shepherd was recovered after 14 months, showing behavioral changes his family described as permanent. And a 2003 report from Yunnan Province, China, where a survey team photographed 4 individuals from 100 meters away. 2 appeared fully human, 2 did not. Those photographs remain unresolved in the International Cryptozoological Society archive. Lena May Kolber left the ridge with her father on June 28, 2011. She brought the children with her. She has not spoken publicly about her 17 years in the Klamath Forest, about the children's father or fathers, or about the nature of her life in those mountains. She has not denied anything the researchers documented. She has also not confirmed it. She lives quietly in a rural area of Northern California. The children are older now. The oldest would be in his late 20s, the youngest approaching 20. Raymond Colbert gave one extended interview to a documentary production team in 2013, during which he discussed the vocalization logs, the trail camera footage, and the footprint photographs. He did not discuss what his daughter told him in the hollow below the granite face. When asked directly what he believed had happened to Lena during those 17 years, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said that what happened to his daughter was not something that had a name yet. He said the forest the Klamath River cuts through is older than the names people have given things. He said some things that live there have been living there since before anyone decided what was real and what wasn't. The trail cameras Raymond installed in 2011 are still there. The Cascade Cryptid Research Institute has maintained a monitoring presence in that corridor ever since. Between 2011 and 2023, they documented 112 additional vocalization events, consistent with the 3-2 call pattern Raymond first recorded in 2009, along with 11 additional plastercast sets from that ridge system. 3 of those sets include juvenile impressions. No one has made visual contact with anything on that ridge since Marcus Webb stood in a forest trail and watched a barefoot woman step back into the dark between the fir trees. Whatever Raymond Colbert's daughter was living with in those mountains for 17 years, and whatever those 3 children carry in their blood, the forest has not offered another answer. It has only offered more sounds in the dark,